Hello everybody, my name's Sheppard and I'm here today to do a guided meditation with you. We're here on an afternoon and there's some work going on here at the Dhammaloka Buddhist Centre. We are getting ready to be able to start our listening care group facility and we're hoping that that'll be ready by the end of the month so that all of our members and supporters can call in and talk to somebody here if they so desire. And the purpose of me doing these guided meditations over the last few days has been really to, first of all, just to let you know that the care group is going to be starting very soon, but also just while we were waiting and in the trials and the tribulations that are going on today with the COVID crisis and the very real fear and trepidation that seems to abound in the world, that we thought it might be good to do these guided meditations with the thought of being able to help you guide yourself, to understand yourself, to listen to yourself in your meditation and just looking at really what that means. And in the first couple of talks that we've given, we've looked at anxiety and fear, and a little bit on depression, and we've also looked at what we call the emotional noise that comes about from our emotional feelings that we have inside ourselves, and just the noise that comes off that, the things that cause us trouble and fear and anxiety around just those thoughts. It's a little bit like the Buddha's message when he was talking about having someone firing an arrow at you and you thinking, oh, I've got this arrow inside me. I don't want to pull this out. I want to find out where it came from. I want to find out all about the arrow. I want to find out what type of wood that it's made from. I want to find out what kind of feathers that the flights are made from. Doing all of that is a little bit like the trouble that our emotional noise that attends to the anxieties that we have inside. Whereas what the Buddha said, the very first thing to do is just to pull the arrow out. And that's really, in effect, just what we're trying to do here, or what we're trying to demonstrate, I guess, with these guided meditations here today. And the way we pull that arrow out is, in fact, by focusing our meditation towards stillness, understanding what stillness is in our mind, understanding the still consciousness that is there. Because stillness is very much a condition of spaciousness. You can think of it as space, even the space in the universe, or the space that's in this room. Or you can think of it as emptiness, just something that's empty. But you can also see it as stillness. But whenever you're seeing these things, whatever they are, you're being conscious of space, you're being conscious of emptiness, and we're being conscious of stillness. So being conscious of whichever way we want to call this condition that permeates our mind, which is really like the matrix of our mind. It really is what our mind is made from, where all the conditions that form in our mind come out of this stillness. And we've looked at this a little bit over the last couple of times that we've done this guided meditation, and we'll look at it again today. So today we're going to look at and concentrate mainly on loss and grief. This is something that we can very much look at inside ourselves and notice our own emotional noise, notice our fears around loss and grief. And loss and grief can come in many forms. I've just made a little list here that I'll share with you of just different forms of loss that we might have. And of course there's the very typical old age, sickness and death that we speak about often in Buddhism. And then there might be loss of relationships, could be loss of finances, loss of security, loss of status, even, say, loss of a pet. It can be very, very traumatic. Or, indeed, it could be loss of face, It could be a change in our circumstances. You know, we might have immigrated from one country to another and are feeling the loss from where we've come from, the loss of where we've come from, the loss of work, loss of identity. And then, of course, we have, right at this moment, the ubiquitous coronavirus too, that's causing a lot of trouble around these issues. And in thinking about stillness, I would like in the guided meditation to be able to sort of take you directly to where that stillness is. And it's not so difficult really to see, and it really is sort of part of what meditation is all about. We practice mindfulness of our breath, mindfulness of our breathing, and that will start to relax ourselves, and we can relax and then move deeper and deeper inside ourselves as we move away from the external world and move more to the internal situation that we're experiencing. And as we do that more and more, eventually we start to, if you like, narrow the whole process down so that we're starting just to be one with the present moment, instead of our mind being scattered, instead of our mind being dissipated across many thoughts, many conditions that are going on in our mind all of the time. We're starting to slow that down. We're starting to relax it all and starting to move towards the present moment. And as we do move towards this present moment, so in other words, we're moving away from the past and we're bringing ourselves back from any future thoughts or expressions that might be going on about the future. We're bringing all that back, right back now into this very present moment. And as we start to understand that, and we start to understand the present moment, we can start to notice that there is this stillness that's there, right in the very heart of the present moment. And just with regard to loss and grief, and also the idea of stillness, I've just written down a couple of quotes that I noticed in Sogyal Rinpoche's book, the Tibetan Book of Living and Dying, which I'm sure that you're all familiar with. I know that many of you will have read it. But in there he quotes, he says, "What is born will die. What has been gathered will be dispersed. What has been accumulated will be exhausted. What has been built up will collapse. And what has been high will be brought low." And then he goes on to say, "This world can seem so marvellously convincing. That is until our death collapses the illusion and evicts us from this hiding place," as he calls it. So we are victims of the fickleness of our mind and the belief in its movement, and nothing really could be further from the truth. But in a world where we're dedicated to distraction, silence and stillness, distraction and silence, and then when the stillness comes along, he says that it terrifies us. We start to get very fearful of just the stillness. We protect ourselves from the stillness, and we fill it up with noise and with frantic business. Looking into the nature of our mind is the last thing that we dare to do. But indeed, when you do look into your mind, when you do start to come towards this present moment, there is this stillness that's there. It's beautiful stillness. It's a stillness that, as you start to become used to it, is a very, very lovely thing to be with, very peaceful thing to be with, of course. But at the same time, there's a beauty that just fills you up as you allow yourself to just experience this stillness that's there. And the more you can allow yourself to be still, the more you're entering into the absolute matrix of what the mind is. And you're starting to see that this whole process is indeed a mental process. This world is something that's built from our mind. The conditions that are in this world are conditions that are built from our mind. But it's really only from this very still place that you can start to see the truth in all of that. The fact that the stillness is really where all the conditions come from. And over the last couple of meditations that we've done, the last couple of guided meditations, I have hopefully been able to show you how to see the conditions of our minds coming out of the stillness and going back into the stillness. So being born, beginning in the stillness, using this still consciousness to move and then to allow us to perceive what that movement is. And then once that perception of movement is there, we can start to feel. And then all of a sudden, those feelings fuse into the solidity of the physical body. It's a fast process. It's a very, very fast process. But we can see this stillness resounding in our mind, as the Buddha said, countless times in the wink of an eye. It's iterating, going round and round, beginning and ending. Probably the fastest, or definitely the fastest of all of the conditions. This moment of consciousness that just begins and ends right in the present moment. So fast that you don't even notice most of the time. So fast indeed that we can experience the condition of stillness at the same time that we can perceive and understand and feel and interpret and experience the condition of our apparent lives as we're looking out to understand what this world is. This world beginning and ending countless times in the wink of an eye. So when you can start to see that and understand it and develop the wisdom that the Buddha pointed to when he was teaching these wonderful things, we can start to understand what those conditions of our mind are. We can start to understand loss and grief. Just when loss is there and when the grief arises from the loss, we can start to see it all very clearly once we can see it from the perspective of stillness. In the same way that I've talked about before, we start to develop a spaciousness around the condition. So the loss and the stillness, the loss and the grief that's there, we start to make an object of it. We objectify the loss and the grief. And we start to build up that spaciousness that is just naturally formed around conditions when we start to allow the meditation to work for us, as we start to make ourselves more and more focused into the present moment, allow ourselves to relax and be more focused in the present moment. This spaciousness around the conditions does start to be there, and you can start to see that these conditions are something that we can objectify, which means that it's not really part of us. They're objects that we create in our mind. So these are things that I'd like to just talk to you about and work with as we go through this guided meditation. Now, I will be speaking to you a fair bit in this meditation, but I would like you just to not take too much notice of the words that I'm saying. So in other words, to just hear the words as they come and go in your mind, but don't try and interpret them too much. Just let them be. Just let the words be as they are. And you'll find that your subconscious mind will understand. Your subconscious mind will know just exactly what's being said without you even needing to think about it. So if you just relax, and now if we start to prepare ourselves for this meditation, so once again I'm just going to have a little drink of water. And then I would invite you to make yourself comfortable in your seat. If you're sitting on the floor, that's fine. If you're sitting on a chair, that's fine. So what I'd like you to do is make your back nice and straight. Fold your hands in front of you with your right hand, your hands gently touching, your thumbs just gently touching, your head pointing to the ceiling, closing your eyes, closing your mouth, letting the tongue just rest up against your palate. And just start to bring your attention inside your body. Inside this body where the Buddha said that he discovered everything about the universe. Everything. Everything there is to know, right inside this fathom-long length of body. So starting to bring our attention in. And just relaxing. Just letting your body breathe in a natural way. And the very first thing that we need to do is to ground ourselves, to find ourselves grounded onto this world, into this space. We start to ground ourselves because we know that this body is part of the earth. And we can feel that as we sit. We can feel those pressures coming to bear that pull us into our seat. Just the gravity of this earth working on us. And in your mind's eye, you're even able to see, perhaps just understand or intuit the field lines of force that are just pulling you into your seat, pulling you into a nice, upright, stable position. And you might be able to imagine that those gravitational field lines will bring you to the surface of your seat, but continue on right down to the centre of the earth, and then come back and go around and round, connecting with you. And you can feel that connection to the earth. And then at the same time, I would like you just to imagine yourself too connected into the universe. Because this world, this earth, is in fact connected as well into this universe, into our galaxy, into our group of galaxies, into the wider cosmos. As we start to feel and understand this connection, we can see how we are connected into this place, connected into this universe, connected into this world. We're grounded and we're earthed. And it goes without saying, of course, that this connection also connects us to every other being that is here on this earth with us. All the creatures, seen and unseen. All that consciousness builds. The trees, the plants, the earth, the rocks, the oceans, the flora, the fauna, the fishes. Everything that we can think of, all beings. We are all connected together. And then you can bring your attention more generally back into your own body and perhaps just start round the tips of your toes. Just feeling your toes on the floor, or if you like, you can give them a little wiggle. Just to feel them. Then move your attention over the arch of your foot, into your heels, up into your ankles. Up into the calves and the shins of your lower legs. Around past your knees, just relaxing as you go. Where you find any parts of your body that are a little uncomfortable, just make it comfortable and let it all relax. And moving your attention up into your thighs, around your bottom, round your groin. Just feeling the weight of everything as the gravity just holds you in place. And moving up into your lower stomach, lower back area. Just seeing what you can notice. Can you sense any little rhythms, any little gurgles or movement? And moving up into your chest and your back area. With all the movement and the comings and goings that's happening inside your chest. The rhythms. Then feeling your arms as they just hang by your sides, down through your elbows and into your forearms, your wrists, your hands and your fingers. And as I've mentioned before, it's always good and sometimes quite lovely to feel just the sensitivity around the tips of your fingers. And as I've mentioned, it's sometimes even nice if you can feel that. Sometimes you can see or experience the way that this tingling can travel. Travel from the tips of your fingers, up your arms, around your whole body. If you're lucky enough, even over your whole body, so it feels like you're floating. This is the beauty and the power of relaxation. Then moving up through your neck and your head, behind your eyes, round your lips. Sometimes you can experience the same tingling, the same effervescent feeling. And as you just look at your body now, you can probably even notice that there is this tingling of relaxation that is just flowing. Just being mindful of it, just keep your attention there. Just keeping your attention with that tingling, that relaxation. And then to find your breath. If you just put your attention at the tip of your nose, so that you can just notice the breath as it flows in, and then it flows out. It's a beautiful breath, life-giving breath. And just to watch that breath. And if you do happen to move, your mind moves somewhere else, if you go somewhere else, just stop, cut through it, do it very gently but very peacefully, and just come back to your breath. And already you're starting to notice, no doubt, that the body is relaxing and settling. You're starting to get a real feel for what this relaxation is. As your body and your mind just starts to settle into place. Now remember, you can always come to your breath, whether you're doing your work normally in your apparent world, or whether you're here in your meditation and if ever you find yourself a little lost, remember you can always come back to your breath. Because already this breath is starting to bring you closer to the present moment. We're leaving aside the past and we're forgetting about the future for the moment and just bringing our attention just to our breath as we experience it here in this present moment. We can know beyond any doubt that this present moment is real. And the closer that we can get to it, the more real it becomes. But over the processes of the next 5 minutes or so, what I'd like you to do is just to keep your attention on the breath. But at the same time, just move your attention more to the mind. So you're still seeing the breath coming and going, beginning and ending. Remember, this is the first. I beg your pardon, this is the second and the third noble truth that we're watching. The beginning of a breath, the ending of a breath. The second and the third noble truth, right there. But as you keep your mind and your attention on that, I'd like you just to broaden your expanse a little bit so that the mind is starting to see around the breath. And you will start to notice that there's a resonance there, a resonance of stillness. Some people call it the sound of silence. And that's fine if you want to see it that way. But in fact, this stillness is an experience. It isn't anything that we hear, we experience it in our body. We can feel it. We can understand it with our intellectual capacity. Our brain can think about it or to understand it. But equally too, we can feel it. We can feel it in a heart sense, emotionally. And we can see that the stillness is resounding, resonating. As you become more familiar with it, you'll start to notice how fast it is resonating, how fast it is iterating. And you can just allow yourself to relax, even wallow in the beauty of its experience. As you start to realise and know that this is the matrix of the mind, this still consciousness, this spaciousness, this emptiness, is pure consciousness. It's not moving. It's not moving in the same way that when I speak to you, you can hear the sound of my voice. But the sound of my voice is just something that's coming and going in the emptiness and stillness of your mind. They're words that have a beginning and they have an ending. Conditioning to start again and then finishing. You can know all this. You can see it in your own mind. This is the resonance of stillness. And there is some important things to notice and realise as you're starting to understand this experience. You can notice that the first and the second hindrance that comes to destroy meditation usually, that first and second hindrance are starting to abate. The desire, which is the first hindrance, and the aversion, which is the second hindrance, have nicely balanced, and you will notice that there's starting to be contentment in your mind. Your mind is becoming content. The more still it becomes, the more content it can be. And then the third and the fourth hindrance. The third hindrance of restlessness and the fourth hindrance of sloth and torpor are coming into balance. Your energy is nicely balanced. And the contentment is present and it's growing. And the more that you can come to understand and notice and start to develop the wisdom that starts to surround these experiences, the fifth hindrance also starts to dissipate, the hindrance of doubt. We're starting to see beyond our doubt. So these 5 hindrances that the Buddha spoke about, that we need to guard against, hindrances that come to prevent us from becoming peaceful. We notice that as the stillness increases, as the stillness starts to be there and resound, we notice that the hindrances start to dissipate. They start to lessen and move away, just leaving us with a peaceful, contented, balanced countenance that's sure of itself. And I'd like you just to start to experience the stillness. Now, just to spend a minute or so, just to let this stillness develop, to let this stillness amplify. You can notice the stillness, and can notice the breath coming and going in the stillness. You can notice the words that I'm speaking, arising and finishing in the stillness. And you can start to get an idea how all of the conditions, whether they're troublesome or not, do the same. Seeing consciousness, you can experiment with this at the end of the meditation. When you open your eyes and seeing consciousness is there, you can see how what is being seen has a beginning and it has an end. Along with the hearing, tasting, smelling, and touching. All of these sensory experiences can be seen so very easily, coming and going in the stillness of your mind. And I'd like for you to be able to see how powerful this is for you, how powerful this stillness is. Because it is the beginning and the ending of everything. Everywhere where you place your eyes, everywhere you look, you can see the consciousness of the apparent world arising out of the stillness and finishing in the stillness. So now let's attend to some matters of loss and grief. If there is something that you would like to work with, just bring it to your attention now. Something that's causing you grief, a loss that's painful. Conditions of this nature can be brought forward into your mind so that you can make an object of them, to be able to see around them, to see with the same wisdom, to see how they begin and how they end. To notice how the stillness penetrates into them, into all of those troublesome conditions, penetrating deep into them. And you can start to notice that when that happens, they start to relax naturally. Because the stillness is starting to break up the tensions, starting to allow that consciousness just to come back to stillness, back to its natural state. Before the movement came to give you a perception that goes on to give you a feeling that then goes on to fuse into your physicality. We can start to see how these aggregations happen very naturally and how they can finish very naturally. How we can use the stillness of mind to let go, to allow the stillness to penetrate into the conditions to allow them to relax and to break up. And then on the other hand, we can also notice how we can use this stillness to create, to allow this stillness to be able to create conditions for us that are favourable, conditions that aren't traumatic, conditions that are helpful, kind, beneficial. So I would like you to be able to notice and see the power of the stillness. The power that we have right there in our fingertips, right here in the present moment. And the closer that you can get to the stillness, the more powerful it will become for you. The more beautiful it will become for you. You can notice that there's a clarity of mind that starts to come as you start to penetrate into all of the conditions, even the conditions of the whole world, the conditions of the universe. You can start to see that they are all mind-made, that it's this mind that is the forerunner of all things. So I'd like to finish with this meditation now just by letting you be for a couple more minutes just in silence, to allow that amplification that can happen with the stillness, so that it's resounding, so that it's singing at you, obvious. And then when I ring the bell in about a minute or two or three, you can bring this stillness back into this apparent world with you. So that you can see the conditions of the apparent world, beginning and ending, the second and third noble truth, beginning and ending in this stillness, this very still consciousness of mind, this matrix of the mind. So now I'm going to ring the bell, and I'll do that 3 times. And while the resonance of the ringing of the bells is still resounding, I'd like you just to keep your eyes closed and just do a stock take of what's happened for you over the past little time. And when the resonance of the third bell ringing is finished, you can just gently open your eyes and come back to the world. Now as you are opening your eyes and you're coming back to the world, I'd like you just to check and notice if that stillness is still there. Can you still feel it? Can you experience it? Because it's very important for you to cultivate that stillness and to know it so very well. Because you can be rest assured when you know that that stillness is there present for you, you can know that you're very, very close to truth, very, very close to reality, very, very close to the door towards enlightenment. The stillness is so very powerful, so very real. So now, just as you're listening to me now, you can still be just listening with that stillness, but also watching at the same time, so seeing that your eye consciousness is working as well as your hearing consciousness, and seeing all of these conditions resounding, going round and round, but all founded on and predicated on that still consciousness that is just there at all times in the background of your mind, the matrix of your mind. So I do trust that this guided meditation will have helped you today and helped you perhaps a little bit in working with and understanding loss and grief and just the ways that you can deal with these things. Because with the meditation practice, the way to do it is really the same for all of the conditions that come into the mind. No matter what sort of traumas they are all dealt with in the same way, by just bringing them into the presence of this stillness and letting the stillness penetrate into the conditions, and then to allow those conditions just to relax and to finish. And when you can notice and see that they are finished, you can have confidence that you are really seeing what the Buddha saw. You're starting to understand what the Buddha understood. And this will take you a long way towards understanding just exactly what enlightenment is. Because as Ajahn Chah has said, Ajahn Chah is Ajahn Brahm's teacher. Ajahn Chah has said that this stillness is really the doorway to the transcendent. And he always talked about being able to live in the apparent world and be and notice the conditioning of the apparent world at the same time that transcendency is there, all at the same time, apparently at the same time. So hopefully this is helpful for you today. We'll be back soon with another guided meditation, and we are, of course, working more closely towards the opening of our care group line, which hopefully will be somewhere towards the beginning of May. So thank you for your attendance and your patient listening, and I'll bid you farewell.